Hey, Sens fans, welcome to the Senstennial Weekly Wrap-up. And there's been a handful of games since we last recorded, so we're going to talk about all of those that unfolded. And since we last released an episode, Ottawa has played against the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal. They've played the Boston Bruins, New York Rangers, and Nashville Predators all at home. And before the All-Star break, they finished up with a game in Detroit against the Red Wings. So we're going to kick off the show just talking about what we saw in those 5 games, and, I'll throw it over to Matt. The Sens, they were 3-1-1 in those 5 games, and what did you think about their effort in those 5?
Well, it started against the Habs, and I was in the building. I had my ass in the seats, so to speak. And just gotta say, Bell Center is crazy nice, really nice building. And it was even better when I saw Habs fans leaving early because we dunked on them 4-1. Great team effort. I felt like they dominated most of the game. The third period definitely felt like they were coming back in, but then once they got the empty netter, it was, signed, sealed, delivered. And then against the Bruins, I felt like they really dominated play. And then it came down to uh kind of a crappy goal in overtime, but we got good goaltending for the most part. But the story there is that they really took it to the Bruins, one of the best teams in the league. Then you get to follow that up with a stinker against the Rangers, and that's the one that sucks the most because they had a positive Corsi for a game. Like they were the ones that were dictating the play, and then four shots was what made the difference in essentially like taking the game out of our hands completely. And then a 7-2 final. They had an amazing comeback win against the Predators. It was really cool being in the building for that. I really have to say, like, Corby came in and played really, really well. It's not easy having to come in those situations, and he did it, and he did it really well. Um, I felt it was a great group effort for that comeback. And then they take it to the Red Wings, and like I love when the Sens beat the Red Wings. I really can't stand the Red Wings. Um, and it's cool to have a true like modern rival. Currently there are brothers in mid. Um, but I think some of the standouts for me would be like Shane Pinto has been really very good since coming back. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's money to see.
Yeah, no, I've been very pleasantly surprised with him. Um, I mean, that OT goal that he got against Detroit, like, listen, it's not one of those plays that's flashy or anything like that, but for Tom Shabbat to just throw it towards the net and Shane Pinto just basically dive and be able to just tap that puck, change it enough that it goes on the inside of the near post and in, that's really skillful. And it's not flashy, like I said, but it's a play that gets it done. And
Hmm.
analytically, he's obviously been a help to the penalty kill, which is good, especially now that Rourke Chartier was sent down to Belleville. So having Shane Pinto be able to replace a player like that and fill in on the penalty kill is nice. Korpisalo, there's obviously been some ups and some downs with him. I was looking at all 33 games he's played in this season, whether he started or came in relief for another goalie to see what his save percentage was. And out of those 33 games, whether he started or came in later, only 15 of them he had a 900 save percentage or above. But in the last 5, he's averaged at 907, which is like league average goaltending. And that's what the Sens need to get wins. And they're
Yep.
getting some wins. And everyone said at the beginning of the season, if we can get some league average goaltending, then, maybe we can get into a playoff spot. And unfortunately, it hasn't been there for most of the season. But when looking at his recent results, again, I won't ramble on about the fancy stats, but just in the last 5 games we're talking about, The game against the Habs, he allowed 1 goal, and the individual expected goals against for him during that game was 2.6. Then obviously against Boston, New York, didn't have great games, but against Nashville, he didn't allow any goals when he came in relief, and there were 2.1 expected goals against. And then against Detroit, he allowed 2, and the individual expected goal against was 2.9.
Yeah.
So in the 3 games that he played well in the last 5, he was saving like, he was letting in fewer goals than what was anticipated he would. And I know that doesn't, maybe give relief to a lot of people because I know Korpisalo's been, again, uh, not great this season, but it's nice to see improvement. And I think when you see the defensive core also playing well, Shabbat has been quite good. I've really liked his game as of late. I think in the past, what is it? 16 games, he has 11 points or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was kind of a guy who when he came into the league, he was scoring a lot of points. And you were like, "Oh, sweet, this is great." He was fine defensively as well. And since then, injuries have kind of made his production stagnate and uh defense not be as good, but analytically, he's really come around. He's been more of an offensive threat than Jacob Chikrin, which has kind of surprised me because Jacob Chikrin, I really like him. And of the two, I think he's better for the power play. But at 5-on-5, I've liked Shabbat's game a lot more recently. And so that's saying something. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Jacques Martin and Daniel Alfredson helping kind of shape his game a bit differently or what they're doing in practice, or whether he's just training differently because of whatever advice he's been given by the new coaching staff. But I've liked his game. It's really come around. So, like to see it. But Matt, how about that power play?
I mean, I guess it's really hot and cold, right? Like, one game they
Hot?
score two. Well, listen, they
L-
score 2 goals and then they just go and get frozen. I
Yeah.
I I don't think they really know how to like get set up in a zone right now, and it's really frustrating because they can do it at 5-on-5. It's one of those things where I look at it and I say, are you guys not practicing how to get in when there are 4 guys just lining up on the line essentially? Like, why are you struggling with this so much? Um and it feels like they make these plays so much harder than they need to be. But you know, we can talk about the power play as much as we want. It's bad. It needs to improve. But um, going back to some of your points on some of the players, uh, I looked at Corpusalo's game against Detroit, and I did see people complaining about it. And I'm gonna say this: he had over a 900 save percentage. I'm good with that. That's what I need. That's it. Like, we haven't had that. I'm not going to complain when a gift horse is looking at me in the face with his mouth open. I'm going to take the gift. Like, that's the point. He had a 920 save percentage. He had a good game. I'm not going to complain about it. Why bother? We won. He had a bad game against the Rangers, but then played really well against the Preds and followed it up with a solid NHL goalie effort against the Red Wings. Keep up those vibes. Keep Sogard out of net. He has been god awful, and I don't really understand why. I don't think he's ready. Even though we were hoping he would go on some type of hamburger run, but here we are. Um, and then I love your point on Thomas Shabbat. I was very bullish on the fact that once Jacques Martin was coming in, I said Shabbat will be the one that benefits the most from it. And as you've seen with his point production and his play, it has been significantly better. Sure, like he is going to have bad plays, and unfortunately, some of those bad plays have led to goals. But I would say, all in all, the every aspect of his game has improved. Whereas I haven't really seen the same with Chikrin, and I don't and I've said this before, I don't think those guys complement each other that well. I think Chikrin probably would look better with Sanderson, or you play him on his natural side with Zub, and then you try a Shabbat Sanderson line. Um, but I just like I don't think the Chikrin thing, uh, Chikrin and Shabbat is working as well as some would hope. And then that's the crux of the matter with the power play. It feels like nobody can get into the zone, and everybody they're trying to get into the zone is just forcing it in the weirdest ways. Like, when did we go back to the back pass at center ice, sending it back into our defensive zone to then break it out again? It doesn't make sense. Go back to the drawing board, Alfie. Try again. See what works.
Oh, poor Alfie. I was actually making a joke the other day because I believe before the game against Detroit, Ottawa's power play was sitting at like just over 11% since January 1st. And I was like, well, with Daniel Alfredson running the power play, of course it's going to be around 11%,
Yeah,
which is a really bad joke. And
yeah.
I was trying to make
It's
light of
good though.
a
I like
dark
it.
situation.
Yeah,
But actually, so looking at stats since January 1st, team stats, I want to look at the special teams.
yeah,
And the power play has dropped since Jacques Martin took over, but I don't know. And I should say Dan Offenson as well, because technically he's the power play coach. But it hasn't quite worked out. It's sitting since January 1st at a 10.6%. And the penalty kill, though, since January 1st is sitting at 80.5%. So the penalty kill has gotten much better. Before that, in the previous like 32 games that they played, they were sitting at a 72% average.
yeah.
Uh, so not very
I
good.
Yeah, I take the additional percentages of a PK, then the like small drop in power play. Being uh being where the Sens are, they take a lot of penalties. And if they are able to get out of those situations unscathed, I think that's more important. I think the power play is the thing that you will find out easier than finding out the penalty kill and like how it works, so to speak. So I look at it as if we are now at 80% on the PK, but our power play dropped by like 1.5% or whatever. I think that's a trade-off I make. And I don't even think we're last in the league in power play either. Like I'm pretty sure there are some worse teams, and it's like hellacious how bad they are.
Yeah, it's definitely not good. The other topic that I wanted to touch on is the ageless wonder, Claude Giroux.
Mm,
He has continued to impress. He had that really nice sharp angle goal in overtime against the Nashville Predators. Nice little feed from Timmy Stew to set him up. And it's nice to have Giroux in the locker room. It's disappointing, I think. Like I was hoping that the first year of Claude Giroux, they'd be in the hunt for wild card spot, and they were for most of the season. This season I was like, all right, for sure, we'll make the playoffs. Even if in a wild card spot, Claude Giroux will help him get there. He'll be great in the playoffs. And it hasn't really come to fruition. And now he's got 1 year left on his contract. And I'm not sure what happens after that, but he has been quite good for Ottawa.
yeah,
And I don't know. I guess the pros is like it's been nice to see a really quality pro like Claude Giroux come in from free agency, play for the Ottawa Senators, do really well while he was here because obviously that hasn't happened with every star name that the Senators have brought in.
hmm
And yeah, I don't know why I'm having this little like existential dread over his future when he's still got 1 season left. But like what have you seen from his game that you've really enjoyed recently? While we have this treasure of a player on the roster.
uh, I think putting it as the ageless wonder is a really good way of you know sort of calling Giroux something. He is and has been his entire career an exceptional player. He is one of those guys that was always so good. Um, And the fact that we have him at the end of his career is amazing. I think that, seeing his name in trade rumors and stuff, they're not trading him. He is not going to ask for a trade. Um, his wife is driving the bus for like the end of the career here. She will be like, "All right, we're good," and he'll say, "All right, I'm good," and then that's it. He the amount of time he spends on his next contract with Ottawa will be dictated on conversations for them. They are happy in Ottawa. They're not going to go anywhere. Um, because they went to chase the cup in Florida and then it didn't work. Uh so I the way I see it is just you keep building and make yourself a playoff contender next year that can make some noise to entice him to maybe sign another 3-year deal. And
Probably
then
be it'll probably be cheaper than his current one.
absolutely. But you want to make sure a guy like that is around young guys because that is a guy you like will for sure want to mentor and like rub off on the younger talent. Like I think Ridley Gregg has really benefited from having Claude Giroux around, and you're absolutely right to worry, but I think we're good. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of local ties to the city, and, it's same with Jacob Chikrin, like, obviously, Chikrin's at a different stage in his career where he might not necessarily want to settle down yet. I don't
Hmm.
like, he doesn't have any kids or anything, so it's not like he has to worry about changing schools and this, that, and the other thing that comes with having a young family. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens on that front. But I do think, yeah, like you said, Claude Giroux, he's still a very good two-way player. And I think you try to keep that guy under contract with the Sens until he's ready to retire. Even if he ends up being, like a third liner in a few years'
Yeah.
time, like he's the kind of guy who you just keep around because he's good for the young guys to have. He does all the community stuff, interviews and all that stuff, takes heat off the guys. Um, Good community figure as well to have around. So anyway, all that to say, I've really liked his game. He's done quite well. But there's another player who I want to mention, and you probably will, I think, agree with this. Parker Kelly. I think Parker Kelly has looked really good since Jacques Martin has taken over. And obviously, he's a fourth liner. I'm not expecting him to light the lamp all the time, but he has really become like a versatile player. Where at the beginning of the season, I was like, I don't really know if he fits in anymore. Like, the Sens should probably just send him to Belleville and bring someone else up in his place. But he's actually really thrived under Jacques Martin, and Jacques Martin said as much. He was, I believe, did an interview. God, I can't remember if it was on TSN 1200 or just one of his scrums with the media in the locker room. But he mentioned that Parker Kelly can be relied upon. He can slot him in, whether it's like third, fourth line, whatever, and
Yeah.
he can play a PK role and it seems like he's become like Jacques Martin, one of their, how like a coach always has that favorite depth player. I think Parker Kelly has become Jacques Martin, his favorite depth player. So, what have you thought about Kelly's game?
I think it's been really impressive to see a player like Kelly thrive in what is being given to him. He's taking every top opportunity that Martin is giving him, and really showing us that okay, maybe Parker Kelly is a hell of a player here, and that's a guy that has done everything that's asked for him. Up until this point, and he was having a good season before DJ was fired, and then now he's an even better player, and he's a guy that you absolutely want to continue having on your fourth line because he brings a lot of energy. He's tenacious. He gets in those gritty areas, and he creates scoring chances. And like it sucks that Chartier was was sent down. Especially because he was outplaying Kastelik. Um, but Kastelik scored last night, so you can't argue with the results. He probably has more goals this season than Chartier does points. So I would like to see better commitment to defense and physicality from a guy like Kastelik, and take some notes from Parker Kelly on how to do that.
I just think it's funny, by the way, that Chartier and Kastelik both have 2 goals and 1 assist this season.
Oh, that's so bad.
So, the nice thing is Chartier has really good defensive
Yeah,
results,
he's really good defensively.
good PK guy, but yeah, him and Kastelik, the offense just does not emanate from their sticks.
No.
And even a guy like Zach McEwen, he's played in 12 less games than Chartier and 8 less games than McEwen and has the same number of points. And McEwen coming into the season, or sorry, did I say I meant
Yeah,
eight
yeah,
fewer games than Kastelik.
yeah,
And McEwen has the same number of points as both those guys. And him coming into the season, I think most people were hoping he'd be a scratcher in the AHL. Um, it's something that I'd like to see improved,
yeah,
more
yeah,
scoring from the depth players, but, you know, if they're playing a stronger defensive game, and in recent, games and weeks they have been, I can put my issue with that aside.
yeah. Like, looking at Kelly's stats, he's got 11 points on the season, 6 goals, 5 assists. He's relied upon on several different specialty team. Well, he is a PK guy, but is used in defensive situations as well. And to me, that's exactly what you want from a fourth line guy. If your fourth liner is putting up 15 to 25 points, at 25 on the higher end, but 11 points through basically halfway through the season, like, I would say that's you're getting good value from your fourth line player. Whereas 3 points in half a season for three guys, that's unacceptable. And that's why, like, people looked at the McEwen signing and said, like, what is this guy for? We already have these types of players, and it kind of shows that three guys all have the same amount of points and are hanging around the same amount of games. Obviously, McEwen has the least, but I've been a big proponent on looking at who wins cups and who is on a fourth line, and seeing if we can go snag those guys for just a bit more money than what they were making somewhere else, because those are the guys you want to surround your team with, create a winning culture, and get good value. But it's nice to have some scoring depth. But we also have probably one of the best third lines in the game right now. Like, it's Pinto, Greg, and Tarasenko. That is crazy good. I don't know about you.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, Tarasenko is one of those guys who I think is more than likely gone at the deadline. He's Ottawa's biggest trade chip. He's a guy who, although I love him on the Sens, I think that it just makes the most sense to recoup whatever assets you can when it comes to Tarasenko in the deadline.
Yeah.
There's especially when you look at what Elias Lindholm got. Obviously, he's a center, so teams will give up more for that. But points wise, him and Tarasenko extremely similar. And with Tarasenko, he scores in the playoffs. Like he is a playoff performer. He's not a guy who doesn't show up when the playoffs come around. So I think and he's also in his early 30s. It's not like he's, 36, 37. So he can definitely give a playoff contending team that extra scoring touch that they might want. So if a team hypothetically like Boston comes calling, or a team maybe who's on the outside looking in but wants that extra scoring touch, like LA maybe, they want someone like that, or Nashville. It would be interesting to see what Ottawa could get. And if they can get a draft pick or two and a prospect, like that is extremely good stuff.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen. It also will come down to what the market's like closer to trade deadline day. I don't know how many people have called Steos about Tarasenko so far. but he's a guy who's impressed me. He has a wicked shot, and like I said, any team that's looking to contend in the playoffs, I think if they need that extra scoring, they're probably going to give Steos a call.
Yeah, I think you have to consider what you're getting um for Tarasenko. I mean, if somebody asks you to retain half of his salary, it's like you have that on the books for 3 months. It's negligible, and if you're getting a good package back for him, which includes a first round pick, you got to take that. If the guy really loves the area, and I put the possibility of this at like 25%, he comes back. But you have to start stocking cupboards a little better here. The Athletic just ranked our pipeline as 31st out of 32 teams. Our top prospect is Tyler Clevin, and I don't think he's that good a prospect in the grand scheme of things. If New York comes calling, and they're not interested in dealing their first round pick, is there a possibility you get a lower pick and maybe you go after one of their top prospects in like Gabe Perreault? Um, Obviously, if you're retaining a lot of money, you're giving them a big benefit. So I'm in the camp of I would trade him if it's bettering the future for the team. And you can, before you trade him, you say, like, the door is open. We'd love to have you back lower, but we'd love to have you back, and then go from there.
Yeah, and I think that's the key part is you can invite him back, see what he says.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like he enjoyed the city. It's hard to
Yeah.
tell when you're on the outside looking in, but no, by all accounts, I think that that would be a nice way to go about things. But it's also important to think about the potential cap ramifications that the Sens will again be facing this summer. They do have Kubali coming off the books, whether he's traded or walks to free agency. They have dead cap from the Ryan Murray, and I think it's the last year of the Fanuff bio, baby.
Yeah.
Woo!
And we do have Colin White, but I think it's a positive value next season.
Yes, next season they actually get 625K
Wild.
space. Big, big. So yeah, but either way, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Still some time before the trade deadline, and hopefully our guest on Monday, we can chat a little bit about the trade deadline and what they think could be going down.
Well, well,
So
well.
on that note, thanks everyone for listening to this edition of the weekly recap with your boys Matt and Matt. And no Sens hockey, I think, until the next time we record. So
Yep.
maybe no go Sens go, but maybe a go Brady go at the All-Star game if any of you watch it.
I'm always go Sens go, baby.
Always in that go Sens go state of mind. I respect it.
Yep.
All
It's
right,
an
everybody.
unfortunate existence.
That's what we're here for, though, to entertain during the dark times.
Hell
Or
yeah.
maybe just make people more angry. I don't really know. One of the two.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone. If you want to follow us on social media, it's all on the screen. Click away, find us on there, and we'll see you next time.
Go Sens go, baby.